Hey guys, so in this video, I want to talk about why MPI is delisting. In yesterday's video, I shared snippets already on the tender offer price of MPI, which ultimately, the reason why they're doing the tender offer is they want to delist and which will ultimately make the company private. And if you want more details on why they increased it, check out the video yesterday. And I've posted several videos on MPI as well on this entire debacle of them selling their shares at tender offer and then going private. There was one very interesting question though in the comment section in Facebook, and that's why I'm making this video. There was a question: why are companies delisting? Or why is MPI delisting? How does it benefit them? What's the main narrative into all of this? So we're gonna talk about that in this video, and we're gonna share more about that as well, and to give you also context and insight on what's going on. I want to share this though. There's two types of delisting. One is involuntary and one is voluntary. Involuntary might have been a company may have violated some of the rules and regulations of an exchange, and because of that, they would have to be delisted. And sometimes those rules and regulations are not really them doing something bad, but mainly because they failed to comply on certain items. Like for example, the minimum percentage of shares that should be out in the market. If they fail to comply with that, because that's part of the rules also, then they don't get to be part, or they don't get to list, or they get to be delisted. Now, that being said, a voluntary delisting is when the company voluntarily would turn their company from something that was public into something that's private. And that being said, that's what we're seeing here with MPI. And as what I've also posted yesterday in yesterday's video, the board just approved the delisting of MPI. And I do want to show this though before we start, and I show you other details, that this is something that has been going on in the stock market also for years. It doesn't mean it's good, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's something that's neutral. And ultimately also I do believe that it's something that will should the main decision for you to decide what you're supposed to do with your shares is ultimately if you want liquidity or not, or if you still want to hold on to the company, especially if you do believe that it's a fundamentally sound company. But for me, being a stock market investor, I do like the liquidity that the stock market gives. I do like the ability to be able to buy and sell anytime I want, as long as the market is open. But if you can see it right here, RWM delisted. This was a couple of years back, way before the lockdown started. So they delisted, and they had their own reasons on why they delisted the company. Another one, this is so RWM under AGI, under Andrew Tan. Then you have something under the Lopez's, EDC also. Do note that they have also FGen, which is highly connected also to EDC, but they also delisted this. This was somewhere around 2018, so a few years back as well. Then another one, I want to share this story because I was this was the time, this was 2012, when digital delisted from the PSE. This was digital, basically, for those who don't know, is basically Sun Cellular. It's basically part of JGS, the Gokongwei Summit Group. And what basically happened was PLDT acquired them with there was a share swap at that particular point in time, which gave JGS also a position in PLDT as well. That's why JGS also own shares in PLDT. It's mainly because of what happened digital. And before, for those who didn't know also, it was a two-player race: PLDT, Tel, Smart versus Globe. But Globe. Then suddenly digital came in, Sun Cellular came in early 2000s, and then they did those unlimited calls, unlimited texts, and they disrupted the industry. And then suddenly, more than a couple of years after, PLDT came in, bought digital, and it became a two carrier slash telecom race also in the country. Now they delisted because it did make sense already for digital to be listed in the market, since PLDT owned a chunk of the shares there, and then they also delisted. So as you can see here, there's a variety of reasons on why companies would delist, and it's not just in the Philippines. This was something very popular more than, I think, a decade ago. Dell, for those who know Dell, is Dell Computers. They had some problems early on. Uh, they had some problems early on also. Dell had very, very good success as a computer company. After they rose up very fast, they went into the stock market. They were able to raise money. But also, when it comes to the stock market, in comes the volatility. And sometimes also when stocks get battered down, they get beaten down, they get sold down, they get brought down to a level that's far beyond what the value of the company is, that it could be so undervalued for years, but because it's based on market sentiment and it's based on investors buying the company, you could see good companies be beaten down for a long period of time. And the thing about being a listed company is that of course you still have control. If you're a majority shareholder, you still have a control of the direction of it, but there's just more scrutiny. There's a greater level of it's harder for them to be as aggressive as how they want to be and what their strategy would be and how they would run things if they were a private company versus they were a public company. When you're a public company, you need to disclose a lot of things. Um, and also, as you disclose a lot of things, it's not just that your shareholders get wind of it, it's also your competitors. If you're a private company, you get to do a lot of things and you're not forced to disclose them because you don't have any public investors. And as you can see right here, this is looking at one of the disclosures also of MPI. And one of the articles that I saw over Business World is basically this. As MPI goes private, this would allow them to pursue a more aggressive strategy, which would prop up the company's long-term growth and would necessitate greater flexibility. Do note that part of MPI also, there's a lot of utility companies that are heavily connected to regulations. And if you remember it in 2019 also, there were a lot of things that happened with Manila and Manila Water. And given that MPI owns shares with Manila, whatever happened to Manila, the shares of MPI got dragged down as well. It massively went down, and it dragged the price. And if you can see it also right now, and that's, I do believe that's why there's a lot of people contending the tender offer, because there were a lot of people who years back bought MPI at 6 or 7, which is even the tender offer is still way below those particular prices. So what's interesting about that is MPI is a good story of a good company that's fundamentally sound, that's very, very defensive in nature, that remained undervalued for a very, very long period of time, that the companies inside it, and they also have a hospital, they have toll roads, they have Meralco, which are all needed, which are all generating money as well, which you do know that over the next 3, 4, 5 years, over even a decade also, will still continue to have revenue because of the nature of their business. But because also the movement of the stock is pretty much based on sentiment and pretty much based on how investors would see it, it gets hit by how people perceive things. And do note also that when you're a public company, the flow of funds, you're not just competing against you showcasing your company up against everyone else, up against how good your company is, but you're also competing for the funds of the other people that may deploy it in other companies as well. So you might be a good company, you might have a good story, but if funds are flowing elsewhere, it could be a case of the company being undervalued and not really seeing any capital appreciation. I think what this does is at 5.2, it gives MPI a higher valuation versus where it was. If you notice it also before, let me see if I can pull up my charts right here. So as you can see, right, way before all of the news, this is our chart, by the way, from yesterday. If you look at all of the news that came out before the delisting or the tender offer or them selling their shares, pretty much MPI was below 3.9. You'd actually see it at the end of 2022, just around 3.27. It really didn't go much. It didn't go anywhere. In this one, if it's sold at 5.2 and the tender offer will be at 5.2, the it gives the company a much higher valuation, and it already allows them to lock everything in at that particular price. And so should there be any sale of the company in the future, it will just be mainly via big institutions, and it could be a price that could be already arranged, and it's not anymore subjected to the movement of the markets. And I want to say this: one of the reasons why companies go into the market is that they want to raise funds. MPI has been in the market for a very long time. When I started investing in the market, they have been there already. They've maximized and utilized whatever money they've raised in the market over that stretch period of time. They've earned multiples off of it. They've already used it elsewhere, and they may not be of need of it. And because there are private investors, there are institutions who are buying it. There are institutions who are buying it. They'll still get money infused. There'll still be money that will be infused into the system, and in a way, it gives a it allows them to be able to follow whatever plans that they have with lesser, I guess, scrutiny, and they get to be as aggressive as they can be also as a private company as well. So there are ultimately, I do believe that companies go private because their season as a public company is over. They go private because they have enough funding also to be able to execute whatever plans that they have in the future. They want to go private also. And as you can see, even for the digital delisting, or even for Dell, those were all different reasons. So you'll see different shapes, sizes, and forms of delisting. But ultimately, if you'll try to peg it into something, it will zero in on where the company is headed, what their goals are, and what would be a better way for them to be able to achieve it. Would it help if they're private, or would it help if they're public? And it seems for MPI, they're taking the route that, okay, we want to do this, and we want to take our company to the next level by just being a private company. So that's my take on it. I hope that this was something that was helpful and insightful to all of you. I hope that this gave you enough insight to be able to learn more about what's happening in the markets. If you have other questions, I'm going to make more videos about this, and I'm going to give you as much value as possible. So that's it for now. Marvin Kerbo. I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon. God bless you all.